Hi, and welcome back to another tutorial video for the level editor of Lonely Mountains SnowRiders. This time we're going to have a look into snow, ice, and terrain painting, which are going to define how your grounds are looking and how players are riding on them. So, if we now go to the tools window and select the terrain tools, our fourth tool called brushes will include the snow brush, ice brush, and ground brush. These are brushes that affect the terrain properties. With it, we can define the snow height at a certain point. The snow height will define how easy it is to ride on that terrain. If we go all the way to the right, we have very high snow. Let's zoom into our level and paint a bit with it. By default, all the terrain is covered in shallow snow, so you will immediately notice the moment I start painting with very high snow. Gameplay-wise, it is very hard to ride on very high snow, and we usually just use it for the edges of our levels, where players should not be riding anyway. The next height, if we're going towards the left, is the high snow. I will paint with high snow right next to the very high snow so we can start see the difference between the terrain heights visually. Compared to very high snow, it is not as bad to ride on high snow, but it will still slow down riders that ride on top of it. You can use high snow to delimit the main paths of the trails. The next height level is the medium snow. I'm going to paint another stripe next to the high snow. Medium snow is very much rideable. You can use it on main paths where you don't want players to get that much speed compared to shallow snow, which is the next level. Alternatively, you could also use it to delimit the main path and allow some off-path riding that's not too slow. The next level is shallow snow, which, as I said, it's the default of any level you create. So if I try to paint here, nothing will happen since it is already shallow snow anyway. Shallow snow is the most common snow height on main paths of trails. It allows for the highest speed of any of the snow heights. When in doubt about what snow height you should use for your players to ride on, shallow snow will most likely be the best option. But we still have one snow height to talk about, and that is, if we go to the left, no snow. Self-explanatory, no snow will just erase any snow wherever you paint with it, and reveal the terrain underneath. Keep in mind that skis are not the greatest when riding outside of snow. Just like with the terrain sculpting brushes, you can change the size and strength of the snow painting brushes by holding Ctrl and scrolling the wheel and Shift and scrolling the wheel respectively. The next brush is the ice brush. Now that we have a hole in our snow layer, we can actually modify the terrain underneath. Let's zoom in a bit to see it better. Wherever there is a snowless patch, we can paint with the ice brush to apply an ice layer. It is not just visual. Ice layers are slippery when ridden on, which means riders can achieve great velocity, but it is very hard to steer while on it. We can also remove ice if we go to the ice painting mode and select the minus. And if we go over our ice, it will erase it. Just as with the elevate terrain brush and lower terrain brush, this brush will use the alternative mode if you hold Ctrl. So if I hold Ctrl now that I'm in the erase mode, I will temporarily go into the add ice mode, and I will paint ice even though I had subtract selected. And our last brush is the ground brush. The ground brush will define the ground type that is laying under the snow. Of course, it is most relevant if there is no snow covering the terrain on that point. The ground types will vary depending on which biome you are using, and the ones that you see here are the ones specific to the Tannenstein biome. The first ground type will be all over the level by default, in this case, grass. But we also have mud, sand, and rock. You can reduce the strength of your brush to blend between ground types. So right now I have the rock selected and I will go to a strength of 0.1. If I will start painting over the sand, it will have a much better blend. Combining these three brushes, you can modify the rideable experience of your level and also give it some colors. To finish this tutorial off, I will show a quick example of using these brushes in combination to improve my tiny trail a little bit. I would start by using the high snow brush to paint the surroundings of my trail. Since I actually covered everything, I will now go to the shallow snow brush to paint over the main path. I could also use the medium snow with lower strength to blend between the shallow snow and the deep snow. Now, going back to full strength, I could use the no snow brush to remove the snow on the vertical sides of the mountains, since it doesn't make much sense that snow would be sticking on the mountain walls. But now that I did that, my mountain walls are all covered with grass, which doesn't make too much sense, so I am going to paint them with the rock ground brush. And I will add a little ice on the edges, just because I can. And just like that, the terrain of my trail is looking nicer. Remember that the different snow heights and also the icy terrain will affect gameplay. With that being said, this would be the end of this tutorial video. Look out for the next one, since we are going to go over our decoration tools, so you can make your trails even nicer. Thanks for watching.